I'm not the biggest Howie hater in the world. I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's the worst. He's made some good picks. He's missed on picks. I mean, we always like to bring up, well, he didn't take DK Metcalf. Well, neither did 30 other teams for 2 straight rounds. He had a medical red flag that many teams just would not take.
He had a medical red flag. He wasn't even on the Eagles board.
Right. And by the way, the Seattle Seahawks, who did pick him, passed on him the first time he was on the board. They didn't take Justin Jefferson. We have no evidence to suggest that Justin Jefferson would get 1,400 yards playing in this offense. We'd probably be sitting here on Bird 365 complaining about what a bust he was. We conveniently leave out that, hey, he did draft Lane Johnson, and he did draft Zach Ertz, and he did find guys like Isaac Seumalo and Jordan Mailata.
Monday get together here on Birds 365. Back on that guys, McMullen and McDonald, hanging with you. We add to the mix a guy who both John and I can say we've worked with over the years. He does it down at 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Mike Gill joins Birds 365. Mr. Gill, been a while. How you been?
Guys, how you been? Mac and Mac. Mac, I interned for you on the Mac and Mac days, man. That's going back a ways, 1998. And, of course, Johnny Mac and I, the creators of Football at 4.
We kind of proved, at least on the local level, that you can talk football 365 days a year. Not everybody thought you could, thought you should take a break. I told Mike one day, man, if something's going on every day, we might as well do it. And then it was a huge success. So I give Mike a lot of credit for that. And it kind of spawned off and did some things from there.
There's always something going on, especially as both of you gentlemen know, in this fan base, which is uniquely passionate about this team, whether they win 4 games or 13 games in a Super Bowl. People care more than anything else about this team.
Let me ask you about that, Mike. And I think you and I are like time spent in the Philadelphia area. I moved here in 1990, so I'm 30 plus years now. And when I came in, coming from New York was a baseball town, is a baseball town, always has been a baseball town first. Not that they don't love their Jets and their Giants, but Yankees and Mets more important than Jets and Giants. And I found out quickly when I got here to Philadelphia, oh, it's Eagles first. Good Phillies fans. They like basketball, the Big Five and the 76ers, and the loyalty to the Philadelphia Flyers is unmatched. It might not be as massive as the other sports, but the loyalty of the fan base is unmatched. What is it about football in the Delaware Valley that does ring so true, and the reasons why a show like the one you and John did and the one John and I are doing now can actually play 365?
You know, it's an interesting. I thought about it a lot because I almost feel it's like the Cubs syndrome, the constant losing and the constant being disregarded behind New York, between New York and Washington, and then Dallas with these, America's team. And it's like, hey, we're here. And I feel that the Eagles fans wanted to kind of create their own it's like ECW in wrestling. I know you guys are wrestling guys. Like they wanted to create their own thing, and it just exploded to where Eagles were life. Eagles were everything. And if New York's winning titles and Washington's winning titles and Dallas is winning titles, we'll create our own identity as this rabid fan base. And I think, it really took off. I mean, Jody, when I was interning for you, the team was terrible. I mean, I was one of the interns that called those 30 gentlemen and said, hey, you've been selected to go to a bus up to New York and boo this man. Like, that was my job. David Helfrich said, I need you to call these 30 guys. And that's what I did. And, it was like one of these things like, what is so I think it's crazy. I caught a little bit of what you were talking about with the losing. And I feel why it's not there. The Sixers are almost down that path where we will create our own little niche now because we did this thing that everybody thumbed their noses up at us for. And I say now, look at us. They haven't won anything yet, but it's trending in a positive direction. And I think the fans almost wear it like a badge of honor that we were a part of this.
It's interesting, Mike, because you bring up the success, and we saw the height of Super Bowl 52, and we were there in Minneapolis together, in Bloomington. Um, and then you look at the losing. In a lot of ways, I think there's more interest when there is losing, because the angst drives more, at least certainly more impact when it comes to people wanting to pick up the phone, wanting to argue, wanting to go on Twitter. Have you seen that losing kind of helps in that way?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, everybody has the answer to fix the problems. When you're winning, you can't complain. So when the team is going in a downward direction, Joe in Egg Harbor Township and Tom in Summers Point and where you guys are up in Philly, they have the remedy. They want to let everybody know who's wrong and how to fix it. So there's no question that the losing element, I'm not a huge caller-driven show. I try not to take a lot of calls, but I do exactly what you guys do. You can watch my show on video every day, and just like you, my comments down the sides are just people going back and forth with how they fix this team, and it's a passion like no other. And I said the other day,
but Mike, real quick, let me jump in real quick.
Go.
Why does that? The Sixers kind of tapped into that as well with the process, but not the Phillies and not the Flyers, at least as much. I mean, when the Phillies are making runs, when it's Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, there's tremendous interest. But sort of the apathy kind of settles in when they're not good. Same thing with the Flyers, at least, and Jody mentioned that 17,000 passionate fan base, but you got to grow it. Why is it not the same for those teams?
Jody might agree with me or disagree. I'm interested in this. I'm not sure this is a great baseball town. I think it's a front-running baseball town. When the team's great, Citizens Bank Park became the place to be. Hey, meet me in Ashburn Alley. Meet me out there. It wasn't because they loved this team so much, I don't think. I think it was just the place. How many people watching this right now are married because they met someone in Ashburn Alley, or, that was the cool thing to do in that era. And then as soon as that coolness went away, I've been to the ballpark a couple times. The team's not any good. I don't really care. I don't know that the baseball fan is nearly as passionate in this area as the football fan. And now, to some extent, the basketball fan. There was a high school, college swell of fans here. I think the pro team has grabbed them as well.
I'll defend the baseball fan in this way, Mike. The Philly fan is a more discerning fan than the Eagle fan.
Yeah.
Meaning that when the Phillies are bad, they're not going to spend the money. They're not going to go down. They're not going to buy the tickets. They are probably just as annoyed and put off as the Eagle fan when the Eagles are bad. But you're right. They're not going to pick up the phone and whine about it on WIP. But they'll show their distaste by just not going. The Eagles sell out every single year. Doesn't matter. Yeah. They can be 2-14, and they're going to still sell all their tickets. They might only get 30,000 to show up. People will buy the tickets just so they can have them when they turn it around and get good again. They'll sell them for less than face value. They'll give them away, but they'll still buy them all. The Eagle fan base is more attached. I don't know if I would use the word passionate, but attached, and will speak out both for and against the team, depending on when they're good and bad. The Philly fan baseball fan takes a more measured approach of, all right, you're not getting my money. I'm going away. Not that I'm going to stop caring. I'm going to be watching the box score. I'll catch you on TV. I'll listen to the guys on the radio talk about it, but I'm just not showing up anymore. I think that it's a football town, number one, but it's also still a very good baseball town when the team wins or loses. But when they lose, they're not showing up.
Well, and keep in mind, I'm 44 years old. So I had 1993. I was a little young in 83. I vaguely remember I was 5. They have 93. From 93 to 2008, we had nothing. Yeah. There was the worst of the worst. So there wasn't anything to really formulate. The Eagles were good from basically, they were good before Ray. They had the Randall years with Buddy. And then right after that, they sunk a little, but it didn't take long before they went on that Andy Reid run. So there was constant belief. The Phillies gave us no belief for my whole childhood and into my college years. So I think that's a big part of it too. If the Phillies had been even a wild card team consistently, I don't think they had the wild card back then, but a team that made the playoffs every now and then, you probably would have changed that course of what you're talking about. Not to mention the notion of 82 nights as opposed to 8.
Well, yeah,
maybe now 9.
Yeah, that helps as well, Mike. But okay, you mentioned that belief with the Eagles. Where has that belief gone? Because there's a lot of people who don't believe in this team, and a lot of it has to do with Howie Roseman. Jody and I talk about what are the Eagles going to do at 12 overall, and you have this group that says it doesn't matter because Howie's taking a pick, so they're going to screw it up anyway. Where's that belief gone?
Well, John, you know me well. I'm thought to be somewhat of a contrarian and outside of my own box many of times. Well, I'm not the biggest Howie hater in the world. I don't think he's the best. I don't think he's the worst. He's made some good picks. He's missed on picks. I mean, we always like to bring up, well, he didn't take DK Metcalf. Well, neither did 30 other teams for 2 straight rounds. He had a medical red flag that many teams just would not take.
He had a medical red flag. He wasn't even on the Eagles board.
Right. And by the way, the Seattle Seahawks, who did pick him, passed on him the first time he was on the board. They didn't take Justin Jefferson. We have no evidence to suggest that Justin Jefferson would get 1,400 yards playing in this offense. We'd probably be sitting here on Bird 365 complaining about what a bust he was. We conveniently leave out that, hey, he did draft Lane Johnson, and he did draft Zach Ertz, and he did find guys like Isaac Seumalo and Jordan Mailata. There are some people that believe that in that 2012 year, I was at that press conference, maybe you guys were as well, when Jeff Lurie said, hey, we had a draft board we used to go off of. Roseman's draft board has consistently been the best draft board. We're going to start going off of that draft board. And in that draft, they took Fletcher Cox. He turned out to be pretty good. So, yes, I think the last 3 years have been frustrating. However, I get a lot of calls, and I don't know about you, that discount Roseman's role in the Super Bowl. And they'll tell me it was Joe Douglas. He was the one that found those guys. And I said, all right, well, if we're going to give him credit for finding these guys, don't we have to give him some of the blame for the misses in these recent draft classes? So I don't know what to think of Howie. I think they have built in a somewhat of an armor car for him to not take the blame. Who was making picks in this time? Was Chip making picks? Was he making picks? Do we have a collaborative effort? I don't know. All I know is this. The guy made a move that I would have made 1,000 times out of 1,000, trading back to 12 to get that extra pick, because no pick at number 6 is helping this team out. But that being said, in 2012, this team lost 4 offensive linemen. They had a disastrous season. Andy Reid got fired. Chip Kelly comes in, and voila, they win 10 games. You know what? They had a healthy offensive line. If they can get that healthy offensive line back this year, I don't know that you're going to see a team as bad as the one you saw last year.
Since you're showing a lot of faith in Howie, and you made a good case, Mike, that, people seem to pick on him when picks go awry, but when they actually do turn out, somebody else gets credit, which is not right. So I'm with you there. Will Howie continue to be wheeler dealer? If at number 12, we're all waiting, and I know everywhere in the Delaware Valley, when the name gets called out at 6, if it's a player that would just naturally fit with the Eagles, people will start pulling their hair out. He could have been our guy, but that will be water under the bridge at that time. They're going to come up again at 12, and X amount of players will still be available. Will Howie Roseman trade back again? Because draft assets are what they are, and the Eagles are in a reconstruction, rebuild, call it whatever you want type mode. Is there a chance that Howie continues to say, I'm not worried about this very moment. I'm worried about the big picture. Give me more future draft picks.
Always. I mean, I think if you ask every executive in the league, they feel like Howie is the one guy who on draft day will go up back somewhere. They're not making all 11 picks. There's no way that's happening. So with all the draft capital they have, they're going to be moving. I wouldn't be shocked if they moved from 12 jumped over New York and Dallas and fell somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 range. Because of what they did to get back to 12, they can now move themselves back up if they want to and still say, hey, thanks for the first round pick, Miami, and we're going to jump over the 2 teams in our division and get the guy we really want. So I think they put themselves in a really good spot. I get the other side. Well, they're going to mess up the picks anyway. The same people who think they're going to mess up the picks didn't want them to trade from 6 to 12. So they were going to get it right at 6, but they're going to get it wrong at 7, 8, or 9. I don't understand that way of thinking, but I get it. People, I say, if Howie Roseman looked like Joe Douglas, dressed like Joe Douglas, and spoke like Joe Douglas, most people wouldn't hate him as much. I feel like they just don't like him personally, the way he looks, the way he talks, the way he dresses. He has a look that the hardworking guy here can't relate to. Joe Douglas looks like a football guy. Howie Roseman doesn't. And I think that stems a lot of the reason why people simply don't like this guy.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. It's football guy versus non-football guy. And some of that came out in the athletics story recently about the analytics department having issues with the scouting department and vice versa. You know, one of the things you bring up is whose pick is it? Where's the transparency? And I said, we're going to have a couple Laurie picks. We're going to have some Rosemans. We're going to have an Alec Hallaby. And we're going to have some Andy Weidels when nobody recognizes the name. Isn't that the biggest problem? And, you know, we'll go into Jalen Hurts as well. So two-parter, you know, optionality. You and I used to have those knockout dragouts. People still talk to me about those that we had at Harris. They thought Mike and I were going to kill each other, and we were never angry at each other whatsoever. But optionality with Jalen Hurts, safety nets, getting those 3 first-round picks in 2022, do they even believe in the quarterback? So transparency in the quarterback, where are you?
All right. So the transparency part, I feel, is a battle. The whole dysfunction in the organization I found fascinating because I say this all the time about all teams in all sports. You have a battle in baseball, the analytics versus the baseball scouts. Jody, you know this well. Your father would probably, into this day and age, be looking at these guys like, are you kidding me? They're fighting. They have a dysfunction because they don't agree. If you put the Tampa Bay Rays front office and put it with an old school baseball team, they're going to have dysfunction because they have 2 different philosophies. The problem the Eagles and many teams have is they want to serve 2 masters, and they don't know how to make them coexist because neither side respects the other. The football guy doesn't respect the analytic guy, and the analytic guy thinks he's smarter than the football guy. So in that innate situation, you have dysfunction. You don't have harmony. You don't have one way of picking, which means you get a pick, you get a pick, you get a pick, and let's find out which pick works the best. And maybe down the road, if your picks work out more than his picks, we'll start to follow you more. And the transparency isn't going to happen because neither side is right or wrong. There's 2 ways you can do it. They can both coexist, but they refuse to coexist in harmony. The Hurts pick, I didn't have a big problem with. I don't think that they thought it was going to get to this point. I understood that they value the backup quarterback. How many executives said it's a top 10 position in football? We got to get a good one. We've won a Super Bowl because of it. Some would say it's arrogant. You needed other holes filled. And they would say, we think the backup quarterback's more important than the safety. It depends on where you think of that. Hurts is now your starting quarterback. So it worked out in the end. If he turns out to be a great player, it worked out great. That whole thing there, I think we'll never know the real reason why. Did they think Hurts was injury prone? Did they think that he wanted to get out of here? Did he think there was already a relationship problem inside the organization? Who knows?
Let me ask you about Carson Wentz, because, Mike, we haven't got your take on it. No, well, your Jersey Shore listeners know your feelings about Carson Wentz. How do you think most Eagle fans will feel about him, say, 10 years from now? We'll put some good time into the mix to let some harsher feelings mend a little bit. Will Carson Wentz be remembered finally by 50% of the Eagle fans, 30% of the Eagle fans, 2% of the Eagle fans? I know it's not a 0, but it sure as hell isn't 100 either. 10 years from now, and a lot can happen that could move the pendulum one way or the other. What do you think the feeling about Carson Wentz is going to be like in this town?
Well, I said I was a big Carson Wentz fan, and I was shocked at what has happened. I used to say, with this kid as your quarterback, he will simply not allow you won't worry about 4-win seasons because he's so competitive. He simply won't allow your team to have one of these just horrible seasons. That was not the case. I said last year, I was so disappointed. If you just had mediocre quarterback play, we're not having this conversation. They probably are 8-8 at the worst. I mean, he was so bad in some games that I can't understand how they were even competitive in that. It's shocking to me. That said, I feel like Eagle fans always turn around and embrace the guy. He used to be ours, and when he comes back, I mean, it happened with Scott Rowland and my gosh, you look at even guys who were in the town stunk, and then like Pat Burrell, the people booed him for crazy because he got that contract. But in the end, they want to love the guy, and I think if in the end, Wentz will probably be successful in Indianapolis, and they'll say, he was once our guy. Boom. And in the surface, he'll get booed whenever they play, and he's the worst. But in the end, I think they will embrace it.
All right. Well, their guy now, a head coach, is Nick Sirianni. So how have you sensed people embracing? I mean, we don't know anything about Nick Sirianni, but you do have this sentiment that the energy could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending how you put the spin on it. Some people say that's rah-rah high school stuff. Some people say we need that youth, we need that energy. What has been your sort of feeling on how people are looking at Nick Sirianni?
Very much an unknown. You remember when Chip got hired, people were excited because they knew him, but they didn't know what to expect. That first game on Monday Night Football, you thought that they reinvented football. It was, oh my God, look what's going on here. But that whole offseason, you won 4 games. And going into that first game, it was either a Monday or Sunday night, and it was, I have no idea what to expect from this team. They can win 10 games, they can win 4, they can win 8. Are they going to punt on 4th down? Are they going to go for it every single time? You had no idea. And he came out like gangbusters and then didn't really have another gear to shift into, and that kind of gimmick went away. This is even more of an unknown. This is just, hey, much like the analytics versus football guy, I don't know if he's either, but this is, let's give a young guy with new ideas a shot. You remember when Laurie said, we want to be 5 years ahead of being 5 years ahead. That's why they hired Chip Kelly. I don't know that he's being that brash about it, but there's that element. I think people are, well, did they hire this guy because they can tell him what to do and he can't really have any say? I remember, I forget who I was talking to about this on my show a couple weeks ago, and I said, well, Jonathan Gannon, he's going to run a totally different defense than Jim Schwartz. Mostly what we're hearing is cover 2, different from Jim Schwartz. Is he going to have any say? And, hey, I really need a corner if you want my defense to work. Okay, we'll get you J.C. Horn. We'll trade up to get Patrick Surtain. I mean, how much say does this group of guys have? Does this new, younger energy in that building? And all this negative stuff coming out, are they understanding that and changing their mindset and opening up? I mean, remember how he got thrown down the broom closet? If you remember this, I find this to be interesting. If you go back to Jason Kelsey's drunken rant, the first guy he brought up in that rant was who? Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman got thrown in the broom closet. I didn't see him for 2 years, but he came back a changed man. Well, is all these articles about him going to make him a changed man for a second time? I don't know. I find this new coaching staff very young, very inexperienced, can either be a breath of fresh air or turn into more micromanaging and controlling.
All right, Mike Gill, we need you on the record between now and the draft. No, it's pure speculation. John and I do it every day. You do it on your show. Eagle fans want to know well in advance when it comes to number 12. If the Eagles stay put, which we're all acknowledging, they could trade back, they could trade up, but the biggest possibility is they'll take the player that best fits their needs, that they've got the highest grade on at number 12. When they do, what position will that player be? Will it be an inside player, defensive lineman, offensive lineman? We're pretty sure it's not going to be a quarterback. Highly unlikely it's going to be a linebacker. That's where I do believe Eagle history does come in. Although, again, as John continues to remind us, we both forget this isn't the Jim Schwartz defense we're looking at anymore. It's a new defense. So maybe Eagle positions will change on position as to whether they draft a linebacker or not. Are they going inside? Are they going outside? Corner, wide receiver, or someone that lines up between the tackles, either offensively or defensively?
Well, I think if Waddle or Smith are there, I believe they'll take one of those two guys. Would be my thought. And then if they trade up, it's because they want Patrick Surtain and they don't want him to go to Dallas. I'm not saying we don't want you to go to Dallas and that's why we want you. It's we want him and we know you're going to take him, so we got to jump over him. So I think those are the options. One of those receivers fall to you at 12, they snag them, or they want a corner to help this defense out, and they have to move up to go get them, to get the one they want, because they know there's a team sitting there in their own division that also badly needs that position. So that would be the two most likely options for me. I think the worst case scenario, guys, is 4 quarterbacks go, 3 wideouts, the 3 big ones. Pitts, Horn, Surtain, and Penei Sewell are all off the board. Now you're left with what? Micah Parsons? Are they going to take a linebacker in the first round? I doubt it. So now you're in a spot where you're scrambling because the 2 corners are off the board unless you want Farley. The 3 receivers are off the board. Pitts is off the board. The 4 quarterbacks are gone, and the lineman's gone. Now you're left with the worst case scenario of we're left with everything else that we have to choose from.
They would love that because they could take Rashawn Slater and they'd be happy and they could excuse it. But, you know, they want to go offensive, defensive line. They always want to go offensive, defensive line. But, Mike, you mentioned Jalen Hurts as quarterback 1. Joe Flacco's now in town, South Jersey native. But that's it. The Eagles have to add another quarterback.
Yeah.
So where does that come, day 2 or day 3?
I would imagine they get the 2 third-round picks. I would imagine they would use those third-round picks if they want to get from 37 back into round 1. So I don't think it's in that third round. I would imagine it would be in that 4th, 5th. And Kyle Trask, Florida, Brian Johnson, Florida. That sounds like a match. Hey, I know this guy. I can work with him. I can groom him. We have a relationship. That would be the name to me of that secondary group of guys. Kellen Mond, Book, and Notre Dame. I mean, I think of that group. Trask has some sort of this is a relationship business, right? Everybody, he coached him. He knows him. I know him. I think that Trask would be the guy that Johnson can say, let me get him in. He'll be our third guy. I can work with them. And there's something there. So probably 4th, 5th round for a guy like him, right?
Yeah, the problem is I don't think Kyle Trask will be sitting around that long. I actually think he's a day 2 pick. I think he'll be gone in the 3rd round. So he's a guy who makes a lot of sense, and I think has an actual chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And the Johnson connection with Eagles staff is absolutely there, but they will have to pull the trigger in the 3rd round. And
keep in mind, Jody, they had the 2 third-round picks. If they don't use one to trade and they like him that much, that could be the spot.
That might be the spot. Is right. Mike Gill, good stuff. Appreciate you having. We appreciate having you on. You joining us. We're looking forward to doing this on a fairly regular basis. So be ready to punch us up. Thanks for doing that today. We'll talk to you again soon enough.
No problem, guys. Good to see you.
Mike.
Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN down the shore, hopping aboard with us. I know Mike for years. John's done shows with him down the shore for years as well. Good dude, knows his stuff, and we will punch him up from time to time right here on Birds 365. All right, quick timeout, come back. We'll put a bow on the show. Stay with us here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.